Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the CyberGizmo, I'm going to be looking at KDE Neon, not a Linux distro, right after this. So I wanted to talk a little bit about KDE Neon, and I'll explain the reasons why I wanted to look at this as we go along. But it seemed to me that since I don't know KDE very well, it might be good to jump in and use the system the way the developers really intended it to be used. Now, that's not to say that you can't customize it, but I wanted to look at it in its raw form. How am I going to learn this if I already pick up a distro that's been modified and customized and tweaked? I want to learn it from the ground up. So come along. Let's take a look inside and see what we got. So KDE Neon is a Linux, distribution in quotes. They don't call it that, but it was developed by KDE. It's based on Ubuntu LTS release. Currently, that's 1804. However, there's a few caveats with that, and we'll talk about those. But it does always include the latest KDE Plasma desktop as well as the latest KDE software. So it was announced in June of 2016, and it's targeted for those people that are really KDE Plasma enthusiasts. KDE Neon uses the Calamares installer. They were using the Ubuntu installer up until January 2017 or so, but they decided to switch it because they really needed more flexibility, and so they substituted out the Ubuntu installer. They do offer hardware with KDE Neon pre-installed on it, and it's a slim book. I think it's a Core i5. Not sure on all the specifics, but I'm sure that I'll put a link below, and is where you can find that information in their website. It's about 649 euros or 720 USD for the laptop, if you're interested in getting one that's already pre-built. So there are three branches of KDE. It does have a release schedule. There's the user edition, which is the mainline branch of KDE Neon, and in that you'll find the latest officially released versions of the KDE software, as well as a stable kernel base. And it's merely meant for everyday users. The testing edition, however, that's pre-release KDE software. It's coming from it's bug fixes and that sort of thing, and it's really intended as a testing platform before they move that release on to a user edition or a stable release. You will find bugs in that edition. There's also an unstable version, and that is pre-release KDE software built from new feature branches. So in this one, you are at the cutting edge. You're right with the developers as they're building these things out. And it's good for testing, but you're going to find many, many bugs because it hasn't been tested very much. So what is it? It's a rapidly updated software repository for at least the KDE software versions. Now, the LTS versions of the software, with the exception of the kernel, they follow the same plan as Ubuntu 1804, as far as I know. They do use a newer kernel, however, than you'll find in the 1804 LTS. KDE will not release a non-LTS version of the system. What they want is the latest KDE software built on top of a stable base. That's their goal. If you're always releasing the latest software, that's probably not a bad idea. You want to have a stable base under it that's not changing very often in order to make sure that you're the one causing the problems, not the software underneath interacting with it. So KDE does not consider KDE Neon a Linux distribution. It is really merely one project out of many. They really call KDE Neon a package archive with the latest KDE software. So that's the way they really intend it to be looked at. Is it a rolling distro? Kinda. As far as the KDE software is concerned, yeah, it's a rolling release. But as far as the Ubuntu software, no, it's an LTS release. KDE Neon provides a more updated packages than Ubuntu does, and KDE recommends a fresh install. In other words, if you're looking at this from a standpoint of Kubuntu, and you're thinking, well, I'll just go get the PPAs and install those and make this into KDE Neon. No, they don't recommend that you do that. They recommend that you go out and get the ISO file, download it, and install it fresh. That way you're not running into some kind of interaction problems, because there are differences in the installer. There's differences in the kernel. So yeah, just be aware of that. KDE Neon is a 64-bit only release, and it's not because they are somehow intending that 32-bit be forgotten. They just don't have the staff to support doing that kind of development in both, because that would require parallel development teams, and they just don't have the staff to do that. That's what they have said. So the version that we're going to be looking at today is KDE Neon 5.17.5, and that was the latest as of January the 23rd of 2020. So a fairly recent patch level release. Now, of course, that particular version came out way last year, but it is an update to the KDE Neon 5. It updates the kernel to 5.3.0.28 after you do the APT updates, and Plasma to 5.17.5. It also updates the framework to 5.66.0. The Qt version is 5.13.2, and Firefox is 72.0.2. Again, that was after the APT update. I think it's 72.0.1 before, and I think the kernel version that comes with the ISO file that I installed was 5.3.0-26. So a couple of patches behind, but then the update catches you up with that. So as far as what does it come with, it's very stripped down. I mean, it does not have a whole lot of stuff in it. It has Ocular for the document viewer. It has KDE Image Viewer, or GwenView. It has KDE Connect, and that's for your cell phone synchronization. I think it supports a number of them, and but you can read more about that in the info center under KDE Neon if that's something that you want to do. Obviously, it comes with Firefox. We talked about that. The VLC is the video player. Dolphin is the file manager. Discover is the software center. It uses KSysGuard for the system monitor, and KConsole for the terminal, KWallet Manager for the password vault, and Arc as the archiving tool, and Spectacle as the screenshot capture utility. I think that's right. And KWrite is the text editor. So that's what you can expect with this coming out of the box. As far as there are some other ancillary small things, but that's really it. There's really not much more to it. So the reason why I wanted to use KDE, and maybe it's a reason why you might want to use KDE Neon, is that I wanted to learn KDE from the source. I didn't want to have something that was already tainted or customized or changed by another distribution. I wanted it as it was intended, as it was written, before there was any customizations made to it. And if you really want the latest KDE software, then probably this distribution is where you want to go. It is a rolling release, and yes, you will get the latest releases as they come out. But maybe you're not interested in having a true rolling release. You don't want all the other packages changing with it. You would prefer to have your Linux bases stable. So those might be some things that are interesting to you. So I guess let's go install it. Let me go to my full screen window here, and we'll bring up boxes. I've already, as you can see, have already installed it, but that's okay. We can do it again. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to run into any kind of weird issues with boxes or with QVMU or QEMU in KVM. So I'm going to do this pretty much the way I always do it, and we'll give it 4 gig of memory and about 30 gig of disk. It will not take anywhere near that, but I'm probably going to install more stuff on there than what it came with. So we'll bring it up. And it looks like it is capturing it. This will take a little bit. At least on my machine it will. And looks like we're almost there. It's finding out what my screen resolution is, and now it's up. So as you can see, we have the live view into the KDE Neon. Now, if you want to just kick the tires on it and play around with it, you can stay in here, or I'm going to install this because, I mean, obviously, if you don't install it to a hard drive, anything you do will disappear because all this is running out of RAM. So I will choose English as my primary language, English for my keyboard US. And I'll go ahead and let it download the updates. It'll probably save time later. I'm going to use guided again. Same comments as before, like in Solus. If you want to set this up, you'll have to go to manual if you want to do anything different as far as partitioning and setting up your directories on partitions and so forth. But for today, that's all I really need to do. Yeah. I know it's going to overwrite my drive. That's fine. And then it found that I'm in the Central Time Zone, or Chicago. And now it's asking me for my name, so I'll put that in. I guess it already had that. I didn't have to write over it. So we'll go ahead and give it a password. And we'll call this KDE 2, since I already have a KDE 1. I probably will get rid of KDE 1, but oops, they don't match. I did that last time too, didn't I? I'm consistent about it, at least. All right. Let's see how that likes that. So this is going to take a bit, and it is 28 minutes after midnight, so I will pause this, and I'll be back when it's finished. Okay, so you can see it's asking me to restart now. Now, I ran into a problem on boxes with this. The last time I did it, I had to restart. So I'm going to try to just shut it down using the normal method rather than restart it, because I have to eject the ISO, and I think that might have been the problem. So we'll find out. We'll go ahead and just shut it down. It got stuck right about here, and it was asking me to eject the medium. So I'll go ahead and hit enter and see if it decides to take it down or not. I actually had to kill this, so not sure why it's stalled out here. It also did it when I installed it on a actual piece of hardware. So yeah, it did the same thing. Actually had to just reset the box. So I'm going to stop for a minute and straighten this mess out. Should be coming back up now. I actually had to restart boxes and then eject the ISO. I don't know if that's really the problem or not, but it is clearly not happy about something. Not going to blame KDE for that. Maybe. Not sure. So we're on the hard drive now, and the live installer has gone away. The Calamares installer has gone away. So I guess the first place we ought to start is where we always start. So I'm going to okay, we'll do it that way then. And I think it's under system. There it is. And I'm going to need to edit this. So I'll go to the settings, go to current profile and appearance, and we'll bump this up a bit so that you can see it too. And like I said, this is always a constant thing. Oop, went too far. Okay. So it does have sudo. It uses that method for doing privileged access. So I will do an apt update. There we go. This will take a while. There's, I think, 60 packages it's got to install. So I'll be back again. So, by the way, the install took about 3.5 minutes, somewhere around there initially. So not bad. So I'm going to pause this. Okay, so it's done. And one of the things that the KDE Neon FAQ says is that the APT will update the baseline Ubuntu packages, but it will not update to the latest KDE software. So to do that, I think that's it. Let's see, let's make sure. Yeah, pkcon. So pkcon, and then you want to do a refresh, which will then refresh the libraries and pick up anything that's new out of the packages. And I don't see anything new here, but we'll go ahead and tell it to do an update, update, I think. Yeah, update. So there's nothing new to do here, and that's how you would keep your KDE applications up to the latest versions if you wanted to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this, and we'll do a restart. I'm not going to wait for the counter. There's no other users on here but me. Why do I care? I'm the one going down, so. If you had users on the system beside yourself, yeah, you probably would want to give them some notice to save their work. But being it's just me, so we're coming back up. And we'll go ahead and log in. So I guess the first thing we probably need to do is do something about this really bright background. I've heard some other people talking about this on other YouTube channels, that they wish they would default it to dark. Many of us who do videos prefer dark rooms, so I'm going to go ahead and take the Breeze Dark, which is the only other choice on here. And then we'll go ahead and do something about this backdrop. I think I'll take the Eleron. It looks a little better. So we can kind of explore some of the things. I always look at this, and then I'll install my tools, and we'll see just how much resource this is actually taking. So this should be 72.0.2, 72.0.2, and it is. And then you can, of course, if you want information about the other things, is that in here? No, it's got to be in the system, right? Info Center, that's what we want. So if you want, I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if there's any way I can enhance that a bit. Nope, but it's 517.5, 566.0, 513.2 for the Qt version. The kernel version is 5.3.0-28. And it doesn't show me, well, I guess it does. It shows me everything I need to know. So 5.17 Plasma and 5.17 for the KDE Neon. So yeah, so I'm not going to look at it that way. I'm not going to look at the system resources that way. So I just need a terminal. We'll go get this cake. We'll go get console again. And I'm going to do, I guess we'll get neofetch. I guess we'll get htop. And I guess we'll get glances. And we'll go ahead and do that. This won't take very long. Shouldn't, unless the repository is down. We'll look at, I guess, neofetch first, get an idea of how many packages it's installed, and then we'll take a look at some of the other pieces of information that I always like to take a look at when I'm looking at a new distribution, just because I'm curious. And then look at the memory footprint and also the disk footprint, and maybe we'll look at what HTOP says about it. So let's do neofetch first. And it's showing 1613 as the number of packages installed. So yeah, it's pretty thin, but there's some reasons for that, and we'll go through those. And then of course it shows that that this it doesn't really tell me that this baseline is based on Ubuntu here, but we can certainly find that out by looking at the OS release, and it certainly is. It is based on Ubuntu 18.04. So, and it should also, well, we can do it this way. I can do a uname minus. I always like to do A because I want to see if it's been modified from generic, and it is generic, and so it's 5.3.0-28, which is what we expected, and the clock has got some really strange date in it, so I don't think the real-time clock is working. So we probably should, well, that was the date of the compile. Never mind. So yeah, I'm looking at the bottom. That looks right. So let's look at glances. 862 meg of memory. I'm going to bet that's going to fluctuate a little bit. Yep, 907 meg. So just shy of a gig. About 20%, 10%, somewhere around in there, that it's fluctuating around. So yeah, there's if I look at HTOP, we can get the number of processes that are running. So 74 tasks or processes, 129 threads, and one currently running. So it's not bad. Now HTOP, it says 567 meg. That's the total of the apps. So it's missing a few things, like some of the things that are held back for caching. So let's see what how much disk space it's taking. 6 gig, according to what I see, and that's right here. Right here, 6 gig out of the 30. So yeah, I've got quite a bit of room here that I can install things on, but. Let's go through this a little bit, and you can see it is very lightweight. So for graphics, you have Ocular and GwenView for your images. And we'll go back, and we'll look at Internet. It has the synchronization tools for KDE Connect, and then the Firefox browser. Multimedia, VLC player, and that's it. Office, we have Ocular again. There's LibreOffice is not installed by default. And of course we have the system settings, and we have a few system apps. Dolphin is the file manager, and of course HTOP because I installed it, and then to Discover. So let's bring up Discover here. Since obviously we're going to have to install some things if we want to round out this release. So as I would expect, it's all applications for KDE here for the most part. So anything outside, well, other than Blender and some other things. But yeah, you can see that you've got some things, some things you install here, some things you install with the APT installer. And there is not any other software store that I know of. So it's just this. Now, one thing I did notice, and I think that's still true, that these are coming from their repositories, and so these are not snaps, and they're not flat packs. So these are full installs, what I would consider a full install. Let's see, let's look at Krita. Yeah, same thing. That looks to be the full install as well. Digicam. So yeah, it's going to be a little lightweight. You'll be bouncing back and forth between them because of course, there's a bunch of add-ons for KDE Plasma, and I intend to go through some of these and pick out some things that I want to install. But for right now, that's on me, not on you. So I'm not going to put you through that pain and suffering because I'm sure that you already know KDE, and I am just learning it. So what? Oh, Dolphin. Yeah, we should bring that up. This has, you know, all the same abilities as Solus does. Same thing. I can add on whatever network folders that I want to this and make them active and use them. So the only thing is, so like in my instance for Solus, if you saw that review, I was opening a EPUB document and it was actually bringing up a reader. This doesn't have a reader, so you would need to install that obviously first to get it to link up. So I don't think there's any more I want to talk about right now with this, since this is just kind of a first look in how to install it. But I think probably the best thing to do is to go back into the presentation here. And we'll go ahead and talk about that just a little bit as well, so that we can kind of figure out some of the conclusions that I have, at least at this point. So it obviously is pretty easy to install, with the exception of the glitch with the ISO file. The ISO won't eject and it won't allow boxes to reboot. But there are a minimum number of packages, 1,600 and X some odd. This particular count that I took was off the first version, so about 1,613. 900 meg of RAM for after everything is installed. And I go by glances. I don't go by HTOP. 6.1 gigabytes of storage required, or 6, at least in the last one that I had. So I had a few bumps, like I said, to get boxes back up after the initial install. All I had to do was just stop it, do a force down on the KDE install, and just bring it back up. No big deal. It came right back up. I think that might be an issue between boxes and the KDE Neon. I don't think that's a bug. I think maybe it's just something isn't getting released. LibreOffice is not installed by default. And of course, when you go to install it off the APTs, it's going to be the older release of LibreOffice, as it would be under 1804 Ubuntu. No mail handlers are in there, no PIMs, none of that extra stuff. So what to watch out for. Packages installed with APT will not be the latest, as we said. And PKCon is what you really want to use to install the KDE apps and get them up to their latest versions, because that's the way they intend for that to work. So that's all I have for the KDE Neon at this point. I may come back to it, talk about it a little bit more after I've played with it more, and then give you some thoughts about how things kind of progress with it. As overall impressions is it's very, like I said, it's easy to install, and just one little bump with it, but not a big deal. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, please like and subscribe, and hope to see you all again real soon. Bye for now.